Welcome to an exploration of sight and mind, a travel through the world of films and the artists that bring you these masterpieces. Do you love films, directors, actors, cinematographers, editors, composers, or any of the hundreds of artists that bring you these feats of art? I am Luis Lacau, your host into the world of films, your guide to Manbitesretro. They say the best weapon is the one that you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. Ladies and gentlemen, for your consideration, the Jericho. This is a line from 2008's Ironman, the amazing movie that launched the franchise that has broken every record possible with its incredible journey of the last 11 years. And this is the first film of that franchise. And I have the amazing William Phoenix from Manbitesfilm joining us for this discussion. William, what was the reason that you wanted to discuss this film?
I mean, what was not the reason that I wanted to discuss this film? This is the movie that put the Marvel Universe on the map. This is what started it all. This is what 10 years later, people are complaining about spoilers alerts for. The reason why we have all these wonderful cosplays, it started a chain reaction that I don't think that even Marvel or, well, now Disney, by the time it was only Marvel, could fathom. It was just...
Yeah, I mean, this started the whole thing. It really set the pace. It set the tone. It kind of set it's the gold standard when it comes to these MCU movies. They've based it off of this film from the beginning, pretty much. And they've done a pretty good formula. Marvel's gotten it down that they have this formula. It works. It's golden goose. This is definitely something that will stand the test of time. It's like Toy Story for Pixar. This is the one that started it all. It still is the gold standard when it comes to that. As much as I think the movie is flawed and I personally don't appreciate the movie as much, I could definitely appreciate the fact that it started all this. And come on, who doesn't love Robert Downey Jr. finally having his comeback story, which was incredible.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly what it is as well. It's like this was the beginning of his comeback. Like up until now, he was he had trouble with the law. He was always in and out of jail. He had a huge drug problem, and this was like he realized that. He realized it before, but this was his last chance. This was, his way out. This was his way to stay clean because some people don't know, but the whole thing with cheeseburgers, it's not just I want a cheeseburger when he gets back from Ironman, when he gets back from, being rescued and everything. There's a lot more behind it. The moment he realized that he needed help, he was eating a cheeseburger. And I don't know if it was like a Burger King cheeseburger or just just a cheeseburger. But cheeseburgers have a much deeper meaning with RDJ when it comes to it. Like, that was his turning point. And that's why we have these, they were both at the beginning of, because if you think about it, there's Ironman and there's Endgame, but there's no other time where he really mentions the cheeseburgers. Yeah. And I don't know if it's done on purpose. I don't know if it's,
it's the beginning and the end of an era for him. And
exactly.
I think this movie didn't just spark the MCU, but it saved Robert Downey Jr. in more than one way. I think that this movie gave him a purpose.
And more than just end of an era, it's like Iron Man was a new beginning.
Yeah.
Because Iron Man. And then Endgame was also a new beginning because he's no longer Iron Man. Then what does that bring him? That brings him a new beginning. So
Yeah.
again, it's Cheeseburger. The figurative speech of it alone is beautiful. How he incorporated real life from the start into the MCU. I know that we're getting ahead of ourselves, but the I Love You 3000, which people are like, oh, it's the new Always. It absolutely is the new Always, first of all.
And
But
that's what makes it such a cultural icon, is the fact that it is able to embed into society like it did in less than a month. Because let's be real, it's less than a month from Endgame, and that's already become a cultural thing. That's incredible. And that's a testament to honestly to RDJ, and it's something that he started. He's the charisma. He is the person that stood up there and started the Avengers, quote unquote. And I mean quote unquote because it technically wasn't him, but he did that. He started the film that he starred in, started and sparked the interest of hundreds of thousands of people to be able to build this empire that has come out to be one of the most, no, I'm sorry, the most profitable franchise out there in existence. And that's incredible, and that's a feat. And not only that, but the fact that they don't, RDJ was this kind of playboy-esque, very much like Iron Man was before he went to and experienced everything that he experienced in the cave. And when he came out of the cave in the movie, that was him coming out of the drug world, out of the very much the greed, corruption, and all this kind of sense of Hollywood. So this was not just a story about Iron Man. This was a story about RDJ coming out of that world. And that's something to be commended, honestly. And I think that it's an important topic to bring up, because a simple act, a simple direction that is given to him changed his life. And that is incredible.
And it really is. I mean, what Iron Man was always like a favorite of mine. Spider-Man was like the mainstream for me, because Iron Man was never really mainstream up until this, up until the movie. Yeah. So when they announced that they were making Iron Man, I was definitely happy, because I'm like, oh, they're making a movie about one of my, my other favorite superheroes. Because at this point, we already had the Tobey Maguire
Spider-Man.
So that itch had been scratched.
Yeah.
So I was happy with that. And then here's Iron Man. And I had liked RDJ already from movies like Chaplin, Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born
I knew
Killers.
Who he was.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good movie. What I was a little weary because of the history that he had. And I'm like, how are they going to do this?
Yeah, right.
But I've always been one to like, unless it's like the latest of the Fantastic Four, I enjoy my superhero movies. I enjoy them from what they are. I don't like sit and like tear them apart, because it's an art.
A cheeseburger.
Because
it's a cheeseburger movie. They're cheeseburger movies.
Exactly. That's what they are.
It's junk food, but you enjoy junk food because it tastes good at the moment, and you could kind of turn your brain off and enjoy it. That's what it's meant to be. But also, MCU has done a different thing. They've done a different approach. They've taken it to a point where it's actually getting artistic. It's actually going past the normal social norms of this type of films. And Iron Man was one of the first ones. If you look into it and you see what was actually in this film, it has a lot to do with mental illness and addiction, and how our society molds us to be a certain way, because that's what Iron Man's character, Tony Stark, actually was before he got captured. And it took an act of God for a lack of a better word, to bring him out of that aspect and kind of respark his life in more ways than one. It's incredible. Like that metaphor of the new heart, that's completely true, and it sparks from that. I mean, he got a new lease on life, not only in the movie but in real life, and that's how addiction and all that stuff works. I think when you get that new lease on life and how to appreciate it.
And that is very true. And you can tell and you can see, and so much has come from it just by like one movie. I mean, think of everything that has spawned from one movie. And at the time, we were talking about a time where DC was kind of running the show.
Yeah.
It was like Batman and the Dark Knights. Well, mostly like the Batmans were like still like in full effect.
Hey, don't come down on Superman back in the 70s with my man Reeves.
Oh, no. I'm not coming down. I'm just saying, like, it was a time where, like, DC had cornered the cinematic universe when it comes to, like, the feature-length movies.
Yeah, because Marvel, I mean, we had
Marvel,
Howard the Duck.
Marvel was struggling. Marvel was putting out stuff like Thor versus Hulk and the original Fantastic Four and the original Captain America, which will never see the light of day. You know, and then when Iron Man came out, I was... Or Howard, we don't talk about that.
He was, come on, let's be real. He was the real star of Endgame. Come on now.
Like nobody had, like they had come out with Spider-Man and they were holding their own with Spider-Man, but nobody, whether Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, or anything like that, had really come out with like an arc this big. Like, you have your trilogies, obviously. Like, you know, you want to go Dark Horse, we can talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the late 80s, early 90s, which it's a trilogy. It's not, you know, a 10-year, 22-movie arc.
No, nothing. We haven't seen anything like this in movie history.
Marvel, like, and it all started with that post-credit end scene. That's another thing. They started the whole trend of, like, really having, like, post-credit scenes. You know, it's like, I'm here to talk to you about the, what does it say, like the Avengers, oh my God, I can't think of the word right now.
Yeah, but
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Initiative, the Avengers Initiative. And people, like, we went nuts. We went, oh my God, is this going to lead to the Avengers? And, like, the more they came out with movies, the more we went nuts. There's that video from like a few years ago from Marvel when they were talking about Phase 2 and how they announced Black Panther, they announced Guardians of the Galaxy, they announced Captain America, the Avengers Infinity War 1 and 2, and then like they changed the next Captain America from like Serpent Society to like Civil War. That video still gives me goosebumps. Like, it's like, oh my God, like that's when they knew they had arrived. Like, there was no turning back.
Yeah. And it set something apart from the regular motions. It gave stakes to each of the films. Each of the films led to the next. So it's something like a good book, like the Harry Potter series, that it led into the next book perfectly, where you got addicted to it. It was ironically an addiction for people.
This is why like people like piss me off, because they're like, oh well, they did this different and they did that different, and that's not what happens in the comics. Look at what they fucking gave us. Like, you're gonna sit there and nitpick and say like, I'm not happy with this because of that. Then you know what? Go to DC. DC, you get your one movie, you can tear them apart. Everybody does, and be done with it. Because I mean, DC's trying. They are trying.
Really hard.
They're not there.
No,
you know, like they're definitely not there. But when you get like a 22 movie arc, and as millions and millions, like, well, at this point we're talking billions of dollars sunk into this franchise, and everything that has happened and gone on, and you're gonna sit there and be a little pissant because, oh, it didn't go my way because this, because, man, I'm sorry, shut the hell up. Like, be happy with what you're given, and just take it. Like you said, they're cheeseburger movies.
Yeah.
These are not like Spielberg or Scorsese movies that are going to be Academy Awards and they're going to change the life and times of movie making. They are superhero movies.
Exactly.
Stop putting so much stock into them and just go to the movies, buy your popcorn, buy your soda, sit down, hold it for 3 hours, and watch your damn movie. And rant.
Ironic thing is, you brought up the worldwide gross and all that stuff. It's actually $21 billion franchise. 21 billion. Jesus Christ, that is nuts. That is
both my fandom and your fandom together, and they don't come close to 21 billion.
No, they don't. And honestly, that's as much shit as I give the MCU and all that stuff. It's honestly because I don't like the fact that they're taking these great actors and using them for these movies, because they could be doing other films that are kind of more artistic, more out there, pushing the envelope type of thing. But this has also pushed the envelope as well. And I've turned around on the MCU and I've started enjoying these movies for what they are. Just action movies like the Transformer movies. They have their point in our society, like Rambo did, like Terminator did, like all these movies that are popcorn movies. You enjoy them for what they are. They're not artistic masterpieces, but they're also well done. They're not shitty movies. They're done in a way that entertains you, but it could also keep your attention. You'll be like, oh, wow, this is interesting. Look at this choice that they did. And then you can find deeper meanings in the movies like we just did with Ironman. Like, this is not just a movie. This
and the flip side of that coin, though, is that, like, they're not taking, like, people want to be part of the MCU now.
Exactly.
Like, at the beginning, I understand it's like, okay, they took RDJ, they took, they didn't know where it was going. They could have, like, flopped, whatever. But now people are lining up to be part of the MCU. They will give up other projects to be part of the MCU, which shows you the juggernaut that it has become. It's like when people were like, I was looking at a video, like cameos or hidden cameos in Game of Thrones. And like the more Game of Thrones went forward, the more people were, wanting to do like hidden cameos, unless you're Ed Sheeran and then you're just right there on camera singing your song like an idiot. But, I mean, like that was just too blatant. I'm like, I had to like put some makeup on him, like look dirty. I'll tell you, no, it's Ed Sheeran in a costume. That's cool. Anyway, that's a whole different podcast. Yeah. But now they're lining up. They want to be part of this universe. I mean, hell, I would want to be part of this universe. Give me like a little role where I'm like running scared across the camera. I'm like, I was in an MCU movie.
Fat Thor's stunt double. Let's do that.
Right, there you go. Fat Thor stunt double. I think that makes me even fatter than Thor. But anyway, like they have built this empire.
Yeah.
Not solely based, but and it all started with one movie.
They make comic books mainstream. They made comic books
even
for
from the
everybody.
beginning. Think about it. It wasn't just RDJ. Like in the first Iron Man, you have Robert Downey Jr. You have
it's an all-star cast. I mean, Jesus,
it really is.
You have Gwyneth Paltrow, you have Terrence Howard,
there you go, thank you.
Jeff Bridges.
You have Jon Favreau, which then ends up being, like he ended up producing a lot of them. Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow. You have Samuel L. Jackson, Scarlett Johansson, Terrence Howard, Jeff Bridges. I mean, when you're starting out and you have Jeff Bridges as your main bad guy, you make Jeff Bridges a bad guy for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Like,
and successfully.
What the hell? And then by the second movie, you get Don Cheadle. Like, he replaced Terrence Howard, but, like, you have Don Cheadle in the second movie. Like, this is unheard of. Ben Kingsley by your third movie.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, it's incredible what this did, honestly. And it's there's something that you said, William, that in a previous episode when we were having a discussion about the MCU, I think it was about Endgame in particular, was the fact that um, Iron Man from the beginning, Robert Downey Jr. immersed himself in the character. He was Iron Man from the first film, which doesn't happen anywhere else in the MCU. There's nowhere else where the character takes hold of that character and is immediately not the actor. You don't think of the actor, you think he's Iron Man from the first 5 minutes on screen. He is immediately that character. There's no jarring scene of saying, oh, that's Robert Downey Jr. Why is Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man? No, you immediately immerse yourself and believe the world that's created in front of you. And that's big time commendable because that's very hard for people to do, especially me, that I loved RDJ from before. And I was like, okay, this is okay. I'm okay with this. This is great. And I completely forgot about him and his whole history. And that's incredible, man. That's incredible. And not only that, this sparked humanitarian work. I mean, this is MCU hasn't just taken off because it's good popcorn movies and stuff like that. It's created a culture of acceptance, guidance, and kind of given spark to a whole change in culture. We don't look down upon the dorks and geeks anymore like we used to. They're not punished for reading comic books anymore. People aren't portrayed in a negative light for reading comic books or watching comic book movies. Now everybody watches comic book movies. Everybody. I mean, it's incredible. The nerd culture has taken over popular culture because of Iron Man. That's incredible.
And there's a really good meme where it's like just exactly what you just touched up on, where it's like bullies and jocks from high school going, yeah, we're gonna go see Iron Man. This is a wonderful world. Blah blah blah. Look at me, I'm Iron Man. And then like underneath, it's like the nerd that goes like, I could have introduced you to this like 10 years ago, but you were too busy pummeling me against the wall. and it's true, unfortunately. It really is.
But that's what makes a good cultural change. Like something like this, that it brings acceptance. It brings understanding. And I go back to the humanitarian work that RDJ's done. He's completely turned around. He's become an advocate for the needy. He's been an advocate for addiction. He's been an advocate to change so many people's lives, not just by the movies, but outside of the movies as well. And that's been taken hold of by the MCU, and everybody does that now. So you have this whole slew of celebrity army that is going out there and helping the world, not just by giving movies, but by giving help to people, giving hope to people. And that started by RTJ's example. And that's honestly, there's no other film I would want to start this series that we are doing on Retro other than Iron Man, because not only did it start the franchise, but he sparked the whole reason the franchise has blown up is because of that acceptance, because of that crossover to mainstream, not just nerd culture. And that's incredible. And I think that's super commendable. William, going back to the film itself, what is one of the moments that stand out to you the most in this film?
I think it's when he finally like takes flight for the first time.
When he takes what?
Like,
I'm sorry?
When he takes flight for the first time.
Yeah.
Because he, up until that moment, like you're waiting to see it on screen. You know it's coming. I mean, you're watching a movie named Iron Man,
Yeah.
so you know it's coming. But it's like when you finally see it on film, and then like he puts on the mask, and it's like the colors, like even just like when it's silver, but like the colors of it.
Yeah.
And he's like in the garage, and he says, sometimes you've got to run before you walk, and he just takes off. Oh my God! Like those words alone are incredible, because it's true. Sometimes in life, they always say like, oh, you have to walk before you can run. Sometimes you just gotta jump.
Yep. And I think that goes back to exactly what we were saying about that culture of addiction, that sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith. You got to jump ahead and hope for the best, that you're able to surpass this addiction and able to get past and get that help that you need and that motivation to do it. But you just got to trust people to allow yourself to do it.
And that is very true. And that is very true. And I mean, because it was the first movie, that weren't even like that many like Easter eggs. Easter eggs have taken the forefront because of the MCU as well. I mean, like, there were movies before that had them, but now
like
it's
this.
It's a foregone conclusion almost, to where it's like, oh, there's going to be Easter eggs. And,
like especially that one scene with the collector. I forgot what film it was, where you see Howard the Duck.
Oh, Guardians.
I was like, yes. I'm sorry. I have a weird fascination with that movie. I really enjoyed that movie as a kid. Howard the Duck, that is. It's just, it's a guilty pleasure.
I mean, like, even in Ironman, if you look, there's like when he's in the basement putting stuff together, if you look in the background, you already see Captain's shield.
Yes.
Before they even did anything, before they even announced Captain America, before all that, he already had Captain's shield in there. And it's like, oh my God. And then after that, it was just Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter egg. By the second Iron Man, you literally see the Captain's shield being made.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Like halfway into it, Coulson passes him the shield. There's so much that happens, and Iron Man will forever be like no other, because it set the pace and it set the tone, and they could have gone so horribly wrong.
It could have very easily. I mean,
horribly wrong.
And that's the thing, though. Like these movies, they're hit or miss, like most things. But Iron Man has been consistently good, at least in its minimum. It's still a good series. All three of the films. There's never a moment where I'm like, "Oh, this is really, really bad." It's enjoyable, and RDJ's character forever stays that character. He doesn't move from there. The needle doesn't move back or higher. He stays Iron Man the whole time. Yet his character arc is incredible. Like, honestly, my favorite scene is that scene where he's trying to understand and see if he could get acceptance from his father. I love that role because it hit true to me. It hit home for me personally, because it's that same type of identifiability that you want to find in a film like this. You want to find your own Iron Man. You want to find that capability to do something like this. If I was a millionaire, I want to be able to be like a Batman or Iron Man or something like that, where I'm able to go and help people and do the things that you want to think that's the best version of yourself, And yet he's also a flawed character that has his momentary flaws where he's trying to find himself, especially in this first movie, where he has this trouble trying to understand what his father wanted from him, whether he wanted him to be a warmonger or he wanted further. And that when he finally realizes what his father wanted was not to be a warmonger, but to be a real person and allow himself to change the world for the better, not to weaponize it and make it into this culture of hatred and violence. It was revolutionary, and he didn't know how or where to accept it. And it's it's films like this that the more you talk about it with your friends, the more you look into it, the higher it goes in your rating wise. I remember when we had this discussion earlier in the month about the MCU, I rated this. I think it was like in the lower aspect. It was the lower side of the what do you call it, the MCU for me. But the more I look into it, the more I read and watch again and discuss and review with it, the higher it goes on my list. And I would probably put this in my top 10 now after looking at it in this approach. And it's like, oh shit. It's like a fine wine. It ages better with time, you know?
Yeah. And it will, and it forever will, because again, like you said, the more you talk about it, the more you realize the impact that he had, not only the movie itself, but with everything else that followed. You know, had it not been for this, Chris Evans probably would have always just been the Human Torch.
Yeah.
You know, and Michael B. Jordan would have never been a warmonger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or was it Killmonger? I think it was Killmonger. My
It was
apologies.
Killmonger, yes.
It was Killmonger. Warmonger was Iron Man.
Yeah.
So it gave, not only did it change the whatchamacallit, it gave people second chances, people that had done the superhero thing and maybe it didn't go as they thought it would. And then all of a sudden, here we are.
Yeah.
You know, and I could sit and talk about it for like ever. I really could with no problem. But I know that we don't have that luxury.
But no, honestly, William, what is overall, let's wrap up with what is the best thing that you could recommend, and how would you recommend this film? How would you sell this film to a person like myself that wasn't a huge Marvel fan? What would you say to somebody that's a film lover but has never seen a movie from the MCU? What would you tell them to entice them to watch this movie?
Give it a chance. If you're okay, when you become a fan of something, you walk in not being a fan of it. You walk in with an open mind to give it a chance, see where it leads to, and you may like it, you may not like it, and that is perfectly fine. Walk in with that mentality. Don't walk in with, well, I'm a DC fan, well, this, well, that. Watch it for what it is, enjoy it for what it is, and then make up your mind afterwards. But don't go into it saying, oh, I'm going to hate this movie. You may come out just an Iron Man fan. You may come out an MCU fan. You may come out and be like, no, I was right, not my cup of tea, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But knowing what this movie has done, the precedent that this movie has, with so many, like, you know, again, with 22 other movies, there's no other movie that has set the bar for 21 other movies to follow, like Iron Man did. So obviously there's something about this movie that, you know, you should just really give it a fair chance. And
well said.
Make sure that you have
well played.
Make sure that you have ample cheeseburgers.
Yeah, so go out and get some McDonald's before watching the movie and enjoy it while you're watching the movie.
I believe it's Burger King.
Okay, Burger King works with either way. But no, honestly, like this movie it's a decent movie. It is enjoyable, even if you're not into comic book movies, if you're not into these type of things. The Iron Man, it's very much like old school action movies, that it has its plot. It's very much predictable in that sense, but it's not about the predictability and the cinematography and the editing and all that stuff. That's not part of the charm of this movie. It's the characters that is the charm of this movie. Focus in on the charm of the characters, and you'll see the true value in this movie. And you'll understand where this world was built, not on the cinematography, not on the camera work, the editing, the music, all that stuff. It plays part of it, and it is important parts. But the characters are what builds the MCU. This is what makes it successful, where others have completely failed, is because MCU has great actors playing these great characters. And in that sense, you could find the value in it by seeing these actors taking comic book characters to another level and making them mainstream, but also staying true to what the principle is of these characters in the comics. And that's important. And like every film translation from a source material to a film, it's not going to be perfectly true. So everybody out there that's screaming at us because we're giving praise to this movie when it's not accurate to the comic book and blah blah blah. I've never read the comics. I'm sorry. I'm not a true fan of Marvel. I get that 100%. So take this with a grain of salt. But when you're watching a translation from a source material to a film, there's going to be a lot lost. One of my best franchise, my favorite franchises, both of them are translations from books to movies. And I love them because of the independence that the director took with the characters and built the story the way that he saw the story fit. And both of my favorite films of all time are both translations that took a lot of liberties in the films. And I'm okay with it because I enjoyed it a lot. And I think they're beautiful pieces of work, and they're enjoyable anywhere in society. This is a film that you could take kids to watch. This is a film that you could take your girlfriend to watch on a date. This is films that you could watch by yourself and still enjoy. You don't need to have any particular preoccupation. You can enjoy this film no matter what your education is, no matter what your background is. And I could say the same for any MCU movies, honestly.
And I will let you in on a little secret. Up until Iron Man, like I had heard of Iron Man, I knew what he was about. But up until Iron Man, I hadn't opened a comic. I became an MCU fan without ever opening up a comic book. And I knew I always liked that genre. Like I was always Marvel over DC, with the exception of like Batman and Joker. Because growing up, you know, the Marvel was more predominant in Europe than DC.
Really?
Yeah.
With what movies though? Like what?
Well, no, it was more like Spider-Man and like not even Captain America, but like Iron Man was more known than the other ones.
Huh. That's incredible. Because I never even heard of Iron Man before the movie came out. Realistically.
Really?
Never. Like my cousin saw Spider-Man all the time, but I never watched the animated series. So I didn't grow up watching anything Marvel with the exception of Howard the Duck. Literally, that is my introduction to the MCU was Howard the Duck. And until Iron Man came out, that was the only movie I seen in the proper Marvel Cinematic Universe, besides X-Men, obviously. Which X-Men, I don't consider it MCU. I consider it its own thing because that's a discussion for another time.
I had also gotten the Marvel Encyclopedia. So like I read through most of the main characters, and Iron Man is where I was drawn the most.
Interesting.
But yeah. But I mean, like even if you've never heard of it, it's a superhero movie. Know there's a lot more to it than just what you're seeing. But go into it as if you did not know there's 21 movies that follow.
Yeah.
There is no Iron Man 22. There isn't. There's just Iron Man. Go into it with that train of thought and enjoy it. Enjoy the shit out of it. Because they'll never make another one like it, and they shouldn't make another one like it.
Never. If they replace RDJ as another Iron Man, quote unquote, and it's not part of the universe that he created already, I will not be happy with that. Because he set the bar for that character, and if they reboot that character, I will be very disappointed because that just kind of throws away everything that he did and invalidates everything that he did, and I can't stand by that. Because it made such an impact not only on his life but so many other people's lives, and I think it's important to honor that. That's why I think this is the best way to start this month in retro, which we're going to be highlighting all the MCU movies and wrap up with this amazing Avengers Assemble, which will be discussing all the characters that all the people that are highlighting this month, all the Avenger movies. We're going to be highlighting all the Avenger movies with all the people that are discussing these films in this month. So it's basically Avengers Assemble, because we're going to be having everybody from this month joining us on this discussion and why they love the Avenger movies at the end of the series. And I think that's going to be important because it's going to wrap up everything nice, neat, in a little bow. So overall rating, William, what do you give this film? I'm pretty sure we all know, but what do you give it on a scale?
Scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
3,000.
Touche, son. Touche.
I mean, for everything that it's done, for everything that it is, and even like the CGI for back then, it's like a 10 for me. Easy.
Okay. Movie wise, I would give this a solid 7.5. When you look past the movie, when you look into what it did and the impact that it had and everything that we've discussed in this episode, I give it a 10. This is a film that it has that staying power. It has that when you watch it, when you finish watching it, you're going to be thinking about it a few days later, especially if you know the history of not only the actors, but the story itself. You start delving into the story and thinking about the story after the film is done. Then it's going to start settling with you, and you're going to start seeing past just the popcorn film that's being presented in front of you. You're going to start pulling back the layers and see all these different things. And that's interesting. And I think this is a good companion piece for that. So go watch it. It's on Netflix right now, and it's enjoyable. If you haven't already, go watch it and then play this back, and you're going to be like, oh my God, that's true. Wow, I didn't catch that. And you're going to start seeing all these different things. So please enjoy it and check it out. And thank you, William, for joining us on this episode of Man Bites Retro.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
So, William, we've also started our new podcast that Wizarding with William Phoenix. So
yeah, yours truly.
If you love this man's voice over here and his presentation and the way that he talks about one of his favorite movies, go listen to this podcast, because he is taking that same passion that he had for Ironman and taking it to his favorite franchise of all time, which is Harry Potter. And he is joined by amazing guests that not only have the same passion, but are extremely articulate and are extremely intricate to understanding the wizarding world. And what better person than to present it than William Phoenix? So please check that out. That's dropping on this same feed. So go listen to it, play it out, and check out all the episodes that we're going to be doing on this 11-part series called Wizarding with William Phoenix. And of course, if you like that, check out Cellar Door as well, that we are dropping on its own podcast channel with Nisha T. Mulchin and myself. And we're going to be reviewing everything Tolkien related and going into the mythology of Tolkien. And of course, the other show that we do together, Manbitesfilm. Every Friday we drop a new episode. It's basically three people at a bar drinking, talking about movies. That's pretty much how our discussion is. That's extremely mature rating on it, because we talk about everything.
Yeah.
Everything and anything. So if you guys enjoyed this, please give us a rating. Please give us the stars that you think that we deserve. leave us a comment and join our discussion on Facebook for further information and further discussions about fandoms like the MCU. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Man Bites Retro.